that looks a little intense. I think Corey had a good time shooting that. I think in more than one way. So Corey, please remember to reimburse your mom for all the stuff you took from her garden. We're starting this new series called Solid, and we think it's important because there's a lot of things in our world that we think are solid, but may not be as solid as we think, like economies, governments, currencies. If anything we've learned from Nepal is that even the ground we walk on is not as solid as we might think. And so with this idea of what is solid, what is not solid, we're returning back to the Sermon on the Mount, which was this message that Jesus was giving as a way to reorient our hearts to God's priorities. Basically, overturning what we think is solid to give us something that is truly solid. So this morning, what I'm going to be talking about is how to have solid judgment, right? Because judgment is the thing that we all love talking about, right? We love feeling judged. Everybody loves it. It just makes us feel all warm and fuzzy. No, we hate it. We hate being judged. I think everybody in this place hates feeling judged, except for Dave. I know he loves it. I don't know why he gets into it. But the fact is, we hate it. We hate being judged, like for our money. We hate being judged by our families. I hate it when people judge my kids, because I've got those ones that, I have the 5-year-old who's melting down in the King Soopers, grocery lot, So I hate that feeling. I think for a lot of us, we've had the experience of being judged at church. Those kind of church people eyes that see us and kind of size us up and wonder what we're doing here. I've had that in my history for sure. So we all know how bad it feels to be judged, but I think we all know how good it feels too. I mean, follow me on this. Like, do you watch any kind of reality TV? Like anything at all? I mean, even like Food Network stuff, which is like what we get into at my house. Or like social media, or like if you go on the internet like ever, it is happening. Or talk radio, it's just everywhere we go. Like the gym, like you walk into a gym. I don't go into those places because they're dangerous for me, because I'm just going, who's stronger, who's fatter, where do I stack up in the mix? At least I'm not like that guy. And or I walk into a coffee shop and I kind of size up what people do for a living based on like what logo is on their laptop. And I was like, there's an Apple, there's a PC, and what it is. And I kind of judge people's character. So we do this a lot. We're used to judging the cops, the character of the cops, judging the character of the criminals. We think that we can judge where life begins and where life ends. We think we can even judge ourselves, our shape, our sex, our hearts. And if your experience is anything like mine, I can imagine the torment you're in. Just take our bodies, for example. Like, I've had my body for 37 years, and it's been pretty good to me for the most part. I've not had any major surgeries. I can still exercise. I don't, but the point is, I want to. I can exercise. That's what the point I'm trying to make. And like I can sing. I can jump around up here like a monkey sometimes. So that happens, and it's been pretty good to me. And how do I treat my body after all this wonderful gift that it's given me? Well, with disdain. And sometimes with just flat-out disgust. You see, I hate my appetite for sugar. I'm ashamed of my arousal. I don't look in the mirror every morning and want to worship. No, I look in the mirror like I'm like yelling at a referee in a basketball game. Like, oh, come on! Like, are you blind? Wait, you can't go out like that. So, we can be downright mean to ourselves. You see, I want to show you a clip here in just a moment. I think it gives us a picture of what the problem was really like. So let's take a look at this.
It was my choice. And now I will question myself for the next few weeks, maybe months.
We had an option of 2 pathways to walk. and they led to 2 doorways. It was a bit confronting, actually, to be honest, to see these big signs and feeling like you had to choose and be self-conscious of how you perceive yourself and perhaps if it lines up with how the rest of the world perceives you.
I went through the average door.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I didn't even hesitate.
漂亮对我的概念来说，就是像明星那种遥不可及的那种。我走的是一般。
Mas eu acho que é mais porque eu me arrependi da escolha, porque era diferente do que eu vivo, é diferente do que eu sou.
Am I choosing because of what's constantly bombarded at me, what I'm being told that I should accept, or am I choosing because that's what I really believe?
I walked into that door which said average, and I didn't feel really good after that, because obviously I had rated myself average and nobody else.
Isn't that interesting? You don't even want to choose, don't even want to go there. I think it's so interesting watching that again as the justice that seems like it's right. She says, I felt really good because I chose to go through the average door. But if you notice, everybody who went through the average door, they don't look happy. They don't look like they were really satisfied with that decision. But it seemed right. And see, what I want you to consider this morning is the fact that inside of us, we all have this internal government going on, our own personal justice system. And we establish the rules of what is right and wrong, what is good, what is average, what is beautiful. And it is this justice system that this insurgent Messiah comes to topple, named Jesus. And not only does he want to topple your justice system and replace it with his own, but he has the power to do it. And so he says here in Matthew chapter 7, at the beginning, first verse, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So what I think Jesus is beginning to convince us of here is that we will become more solid in life as a disciple of his when we trust God's judgment instead of our own. And he doesn't waste any time. He kind of gets right to the point. Right at the beginning, he says, do not judge. It's a command. He doesn't say, be careful when you judge, or make sure to get all the facts before you judge. He says, just don't do it. So why not? Why do you think this is so important to Jesus? In verse 2, he says, for in the same way you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you used, it will be measured to you. So it's important also to note that he's not saying don't judge or God will judge you, or don't judge or you will be he'll be angry and he'll punish you forever in torment. No, he says, because if you judge, you're going to be subjected to the same judgments that you use. That's it. But that's punishment enough. I think it's really interesting, the word that is used here for judge. In Aramaic, the word for judge means to rule or to govern. So in essence, it means to make a ruling, to give a verdict. And kings make verdicts. Judges make rulings. And when you do this, you basically put yourself in charge of the end of something. But there's only one person who is in charge of the end. And that is the same person who's responsible for the beginning, and that is God. So when you begin to judge, when you begin to govern, you put yourself in the place of God and seek to unseat him and have life without him. And life without God is hell. And so there's another reason. Not only do we unseat God from the job that he has, but the other reason Jesus is so serious about this is because when we judge, we hurt the people he loves. See, Jesus knows that when we judge out of a place of complicated motives and limited ability. We judge from a place of complicated motives and limited ability. See, you don't have to be married to know that we don't make judgments based on the facts, right? But we make judgments based on stories. But I'm married, and that's how I learned this. And as I was kind of preparing this week for this message, I called my wife, Krista, and I was looking for a way to kind of get an illustration for this. And I said, Krista, can you help me think of a time, I'm just in your wildest imagination, where I made judgments not based on facts, but on the stories in my head? Could you possibly imagine a time like that? And of course she could. It went right to our last fight, which was pretty easy. You know, and it was kind of nice to be able to do a post-mortem on our fight and kind of go, okay, what were the stories at play involved? And as we started talking, I realized, oh, I see who I thought I was in this fight. I thought I was the expert who came equipped with all my learning books and podcasts I've listened to and staff conversations and counseling stuff, and I was going to lay some crucial conversations down. We were going to get to business, you know, and I set myself up as a clear-headed leader, you know, who could guide her through these troubled waters without being patronizing, of course, you know. And incidentally, in my narrative, too, she's going to be so grateful when I finally, like, you know, present everything. Because, of course, she's the emotional, reactive, defensive wife, right? And I wonder why we don't have more fights, honestly. So my motives weren't exactly noble. And my ability was limited. I think it's so interesting, the image Jesus uses here of this plank. It's sort of absurd, like this huge 2x4 sticking out of somebody's face, you know, looking for the smallest speck in somebody else's eye. And you can see through the passage that what is the biggest problem here? The biggest problem is the plank in your eye. He says in verse 3, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? Well, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? See, there's this intention for us to help, right? That we feel like we've got the judgment kind of put together. But our judgment, our help, is a big problem to everybody else. And the speck in somebody else's eye, I mean, according to this passage, pales in comparison to the major problem, to the main problem, which is that huge plank existing in your eye. So even if we judge from a place of complicated complicated motives and limited ability, God, on the other hand, judges from a place of love and final authority. Now, it doesn't sound like love at first, but I want you to hear this. In verse 5, he says, you hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, then you will clearly see to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Okay, the love comes in a very strange package. It comes in this word hypocrite. He calls us hypocrites. And a hypocrite, at that time, everybody would have known, hypocrite is a Greek word used to denote an actor. That's how theater was performed. Actors would put on masks. You've seen the comedy tragedy masks, that kind of stuff. They're sort of exaggerations of a human face. And a mask is something that we build to cover our faces in order to protect ourselves, in order to tell a story in some way. But see, masks are essentially lies about our faces. And we all wear masks from time to time to cover our face. But here's the thing, is your face is what makes you unique. Your face is what makes you human. We are identified by our faces. And so what Jesus does is he comes to judge the mask and save our faces, to save our humanity. And this is really wonderful news, because that real self is what he loves, and he wants to separate it from the false self. So what does it mean for you to embrace this kind of judgment? I would suggest a couple of things. Embracing God's judgment allows him to begin to remove the mask. But that's going to hurt. See, we've put on our masks for actually a lot of good reasons. We've done it to protect ourselves. Sometimes it's allowed us to survive really hard situations. And it's okay to know that. It's okay to see that and even be grateful for the role those masks played in our life. But at some point, we have to see that what saved our life in the past is now threatening our life and has the potential to steal our joy, because it is those masks that cover our own personal justice system. They're the thing that's in the way. See, because I have a belief that I'm a really healthy person, that I'm really self-aware, despite all the data that is coming toward me, and I can still hold on to that. It's the same way. It's like I can believe the whole day long that I'm generous, even if I don't give any of my money or my time away, because I can still keep that mask around me. And when Jesus comes, it doesn't seem like love. It seems like violence at first, because he comes to attack our masks, because he loves our humanity. But see, God's judgment it's like a divine surgery, and judgment always burns. It always burns. But the burn means it's working. I don't know if you had parents like mine who would say that to you whenever they would apply some lotion or alcohol to a bruise or something like that. They were like, the burn means it's working, as if that was supposed to make it better. But kids don't care. And I have a 5-year-old, my 5-year-old Daly, and she has eczema, and I have to put lotion on her face sometimes. And it hurts. It burns. And I don't want her to cry, and I don't want her to scream, and I don't want her to feel like I'm hurting her, but I don't want her to suffer later on when the eczema gets worse, and for me to untreat it, because that would hurt her worse, and I don't want that. See, God is not interested in the burning any more than I'm interested in the burning. He has no purpose to burning you forever and ever without end, because his burning, or what the scripture calls wrath, it only lasts for a season, and it is always, always, always to heal what has been broken and to protect what is flourishing. And here's the scary thing, is God uses people in our lives as the judgment, as a way to administer that kind of judgment. And it is people that are closest to us who see our masks, but more importantly, have seen our naked face. They're the people who know us. Like the people who have seen my naked face are, my wife, my kids. They see the parts of me that I wish other people didn't know. But there's people that know me too. I used to travel on the road as a musician, and people would know me there, because you get to know somebody when you're on a road trip. And there was one occasion when I was playing with a band, and there was a group of musicians that I highly respected, and that I was frankly intimidated by. And I wanted to impress them, but I hadn't practiced very well. And so I was playing, and the drummer, Matt, he came up to me after a gig, and he said, Paul, I just want you to know we had to turn you off in the main speakers because you were so bad. We had to just do it. And man, I was angry. I was hurt. I was embarrassed. It burned me. And it took a couple of days for me to get to the other side of that, to realize what Matt actually did was an act of love, was an act of friendship, because he took a risk in our relationship to tell me something true about myself. And I became better. I became a better musician. I more disciplined. I took things seriously. But it hurt. But he was able to return me to myself. And that's the other thing that embracing God's judgment means. Embracing God's judgment allows you to reclaim your humanity. Because, see, this divine surgery is not plastic surgery. It's not, God doesn't want to change you into some super spiritual, flawless, impenetrable version of you. No, that's another mask. No, what he wants is what he created, which is you, human. You are a human, and you have a human face, and that is his judgment on you. And what does it mean to be human? It means to be limited, vulnerable, emotional, wounded, and beautiful. I want you to hear that. That is a judgment. You are beautiful. I'm talking to the men here too, and you've got to wrestle with what that means for you. You know, that you are beautiful in your substance and in your form. And God made you out of the earth in his image. And this is why evil hates your humanity, hates your face, because you look like God. God is inviting you to love what he has always loved. And so when we stop protecting our mask and embrace our limitations, we begin to see clearly our own shape and face. He says, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So two things happen to our sight when we embrace God's judgment. The first thing that happens is embracing God's judgment improves how we see. It improves how we see. I want to show you a picture of a guy who's one of my heroes of late here. His name is Father Greg Boyle. He's a Jesuit priest who started one of the largest gang intervention programs in the U.S., and I just love the joy in this picture. I can't stop looking at it. I think it's so beautiful. Anyway, Father Greg goes around and he takes some of his homeboys with him to go and speak at different occasions. And on one occasion, he brought his friend Jose with him, and he was talking to a group of social workers, and Jose began to speak, and he started by saying, you know, my mom and I, we didn't get along so good. And then he begins to tell the story that when he was only age 6, his mom said to him, why don't you just kill yourself? You're such a burden. At age 9, she drives him out into the deepest part of Baja California and leaves him at an orphanage and just says, I found this kid. It wasn't until 3 months later until his grandmother found out where he was and went and rescued him. He said, my mother beat me every day of my life. And he says, I wore 3 t-shirts well into my adult years because I was so ashamed of my wounds. I didn't want anyone to see them. But now my wounds are my friends. I welcome my wounds. I run my fingers over my wounds. How can I help the wounded if I don't welcome my own wounds? Gosh, there is so much awe when I hear something like that. I want to worship because it is that's the picture of what it looks like to embrace God's judgment. There is joy, there is purpose. You realize he says, my wounds are my friends. And Jesus gives us the grace to welcome all the pain and tragedy of our past into the beautiful story of redemption. See, everything that hurt him, that he was trying to hide, was included in the redemptive story. And now Jose works in the addiction recovery program at Homeboys. So not only does it improve how you see, embracing God's judgment improve how you see, it improves who you see. He says, then you will clearly see to remove the speck from your brother's eye. The word brother is what I want to focus in on. That is so important. Because when we deal with the self-righteousness inside of us, that plank, that self-justice system, then we can finally connect our kinship with our brothers and sisters. We can begin to see them as part of us, our family. See, Father Greg would also say that there's a lot of people who have said of him that he has helped return them to their true self. But he says, they have helped me. They've returned me to my true self. And that's the beautiful thing of what happens when we begin to deal with all that stuff. I would imagine if you talk to anybody who went to any of our India missions trips, like, who do you feel got the most out of the trip? The people you served or you? And I would say a lot of them would say, I feel like I got more. They seemed like they were happy to some degree, and we gave them a lot, but I feel like I walked away being changed. See, it is the people who are other from us, the people who we are separated from, that hold the greatest potential to change us. But any attempt that we have to try and help them without first identifying with them as brother and sister will be received as a threat. Think about your eyes again. Think about, like, when you have something in your eye, who do you allow to take it out? I mean, your whole body is designed to protect your eyes. You have to trust that person that they're not going to hurt you, but they are going to see you and help you. And can you imagine who that group is for you? Just take a moment, think about who's the group that you abhor? Who's the enemy? Can you imagine what kinship might look like with members of ISIS? With the Taliban? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we should judge evil for evil and protect the people who are being hurt. But stopping evil is not the same as demonizing people. So, for me, I know it's like the Westboro Baptist Church. You know, the people who go and they picket funerals and, you know, God hates gays and that kind of stuff. And every time they do another boneheaded thing and I get so angry and I kind of feel Jesus in the back of my head going, what does it mean for you to love them? And that burns me. It burns me. So you see what I mean by Jesus coming to flip over our justice system? What does that mean for you? I just want you to take a moment. I want you to think honestly, what does it mean for you to embrace God's judgment for you? And does that make you afraid? Does it make you confused? What would it look like for you to ask a friend to begin to see your naked face? And maybe even to help you begin to remove your mask. Who sees your naked face? Who do you need to discover kinship with? I want to show you the end of that experiment here.
Todos os dias eu passo pela porta comum e ontem foi um dia único e eu optei por passar pelo Bonita.
I wanted to go through the average door, but my mum just pulled me over to the beautiful door.
It was quite a triumphant feeling. It was like telling the world, I think I'm beautiful.
I just wish more young women realized it.
要是再给我一次机会走那扇门的话，我觉得我应该会选很美的扇门。
I think I would walk through the beautiful door.
Acho que a porta bonita tá completamente aberta para mim.
Maybe I could walk in that door.
You can.
Next time I look into the mirror, I will see somebody really beautiful looking back at me.
Beautiful is a great word. So why not see what's on the other side of that?
Beautiful is a good word. It really is. I mean, is it something that, is it a judgment you allow to be weighed upon you? Will you be the one who says, you can, to someone else? That door is open for you. Let's walk through that door together. We're going to take communion in just a moment. But I'm wondering that maybe you're wondering if you want to accept God's judgment on you, but you just don't know how. In just a moment, I'm going to pray a quick prayer. And you can use my words as a way to begin that journey with you, as a way of saying, God, I want to give up my personal justice system and I want to accept what you say about me. And then you can come, you can take communion. And then when you go back to your chair, I want you to take a bold step and make it real. If you want to move past that, you want to let somebody else see your face, I want you to write your name, fill out the connection card, and write just, I want Jesus on that, put it in the offering basket. And then one of your brothers, one of your sisters will reach out to you and help you take the next step in your journey towards Jesus. So Let's all bow our heads for just a moment. Let's pray this together. I'll pray it for me. You can pray it for you even if it's for the first time. Jesus, I want you. I want your judgment on me. I confess, I admit that I'm a terrible governor, that I want to surrender my personal justice system. I've made a mess of things, and I really think that you have the key to life. And so I want to be your student. I want to learn from you. I want you to change me. I want you to introduce me to this idea of eternal life that I can experience now and forever. So will you come? Begin to live inside of me. Show me your true justice and your true joy. In Jesus' name, amen.